Hello there, everyone, and welcome to GamePoints episode 322, your weekly little get-together. We talk about recent gaming news. As always, your host, Stephen Brown, and tonight we have rumors of Deus Ex possibly returning. An impossible Halo 2 challenge has been accomplished in rather short order after it was given, and the Snitch teases yet another upcoming game. All of that and more, of course. But first, before we get into anything, I want everyone here to know this is an audience interactive podcast. So if you're watching here live at Twitch TV/GamePoints or later over at any myriad of video hosting platforms, be it YouTube, Rumble, BitChute, all that good stuff, feel free to join the conversation either in chat or the comments down below. Just try to keep the topics germane to the stories on hand. First story that we're going to go ahead and get into tonight right here. Let me bring it up. This is via Games Radar. But this comes by the way of Jeff Grubb, or comes by the way of Games Radar via Jeff Grubb, whatever the appropriate journalistic term for that is. I don't remember which is which. Deus Ex Studio aims to return the series under its new owner, the rumors say. To the article itself, modern Deus Ex developer Eidos Montreal is reportedly aiming to return to the Cyberpunk series immediately and is hoping to outdo Cyberpunk 2077 in the process. As an aside, I would say that the iron is hot for that. Cyberpunk still seems, not the game, but the genre still seems to be a woefully underserved category, and the dream that many people had over Cyberpunk 2077 fell far short of what people were expecting. So there is this gaping hole that is yet to be filled, and I think Deus Ex could do a good job of it. Back to the article. These rumors come from prolific insider Jeff Grubb, speaking on Giant Bomb's Game Mess Mornings podcast. Grubb notes that any internal discussion about Eidos Montreal's next project are very early, but he says the studio is eager to return to Deus Ex. It's early, he says. The rumbling I've heard is that the studio wants to immediately get into Deus Ex. They want to get right back into that. They want to challenge, they want to do what Cyberpunk 2077 couldn't and stuff like that. That's the word going around. We'll see if it happens. It's so early, like what it will turn into. But there's no possibility for that conversation to begin under the current Square Enix, right? Essentially what Grubb there is saying is that you can't even start this conversation until after the studio is fully handed over to Embracer Group. Until that happens, this conversation is dead in the water. But it will probably is happening if you ask me. There's too much of an interest in Deus Ex amongst its hardcore fan base for Embracer to let that go. And Embracer's entire MO is to take these moderately successful IPs with a very devoted fan base and create new things for them. I mean, my God, if we can get a new Destroy All Humans and a new Time Splitters, surely we can get a new Deus Ex. And add Legacy of Kain to that topic, which I believe Embracer said they saw great interest in as well. So I would expect more news on both of those IPs. Back to the article. Square Enix was the previous owner of Eidos Montreal and the Deus Ex franchise, but sold both alongside Crystal Dynamics and the Tomb Raider IP. That's surprising to me. The Tomb Raider selling of the Tomb Raider IP by Square struck me as shocking because Tomb Raider has appeal beyond games. You could say it's not much of appeal, but Lara Croft is a cultural icon. Not as much of a powerhouse as she was in the mid to late 90s, but definitely still has that center say qua that most video game characters don't have outside of Nintendo, and to a lesser degree Sonic the Hedgehog. Back to the article. Embracer named Deus Ex alongside Tomb Raider, Thief, I keep forgetting about Thief, what a great game, and Legacy of Kain, Thief 1 and 2, Thief 4 not so much. And Legacy of Kain is one of the franchises with great potential in, hinting at sequels alongside remakes, remasters, spin-offs, and transmedia projects. I would love a remastering, not only of the original Deus Ex, but also of the first two Thief games, and the original Legacy of Kain Blood Omen. Would probably get Soul Reaver 1 and 2, which are great games on their right, but there's something about that Blood Omen that was just, so good. Embracer's also said there is a very sizable AAA experiences in the pipeline from Eidos Montreal and other newly acquired studios, including beloved franchises that we will own as well as original IPs. A Tomb Raider game was announced just prior to the Embracer sale, and details of that script have leaked by way of Sacred Symbols, of which Square Enix gave, in Crystal Dynamics, I believe, DMCA'd that podcast because they dared read out in a horrendously fake British accent what that script was. So let's not forget that they pulled some shenanigans under something that was clearly transformative under fair use. I think this is a no-brainer. You don't buy up all the IP and just sit on them. I know some studios do. For example, my beloved Free Space IP was bought up for a song when that company ended up having its fire sale, when I think it was Interplay had its fire sale. I think it was Interplay. But $300 million is not the, I believe that total was 5,000 for Free Space. It's not that. This actually has some money behind it, and you're sitting on some big names, and the nostalgia factor alone, you probably, if you could do something B tier ish like Embracer Group seems to be rolling out, you could probably get your money back. What the hell do I know? I'm just a talking head, but I think that it would be wise and behoove them to actually capitalize on the IP they now own, things that have just been sitting dormant for years. And I would love to see another Deus Ex. However, I would shy away from calling it a Cyberpunk 2077 competitor. In fact, I would just shy away from making that comparison in general. Call it what it is, Deus Ex. Don't need to compare it to anything else. Stands on its own. Next story. By the way, the link to this and all the stories will be provided down below in the description. Just go looking around there, or over on our Discord server. Link to that provided down below as well, regardless of where you're watching. Next up here via GameSpot. An impossible Halo 2 no-def LASO challenge finally has its winner. Don't worry, I'll explain exactly what a LASO challenge in Halo 2 is as we go into the story. A $20,000 Halo 2 challenge issued by streamer and YouTuber Critical, Moist Critical, but Critical is what we call him, has finally been completed, with streamer Jervelin claiming the bounty. Earlier this summer, Critical offered $5,000 to anyone who could conquer what he called the hardest challenge in all of gaming. That challenge? Complete Halo 2 solo on legendary difficulty with all the game's difficulty adding skulls turned on without dying a single time. Now, Halo 2 has an absurd legendary difficulty, even compared to other Halo games. What the skulls in Halo do is you turn them on and they add extra difficulty to that game. So for example, one skull might increase an enemy's durability. Another skull might result in them dealing out higher damage. Another one might make them invisible. Another one might let you find only half the ammo you would normally find. This was considered impossible to do because of, well, one, the absurd difficulty of it, and two, Halo 2's AI isn't what you would consider entirely predictable. This isn't like a speed running game where you can go, okay, at this exact moment, this shot is going to come from here. There's a little bit of that, but there is some unpredictability in the game, which makes it very difficult to do a perfect run on. You kind of have to rely a little bit on luck. And it seems like someone's luck finally paid off. Back to the article. Though this feat surely has been accomplished by someone, somewhere, since the game's 2004 launch, there's no video record of it ever been done, which is why Critical's challenge also stipulated the entire ordeal needs to be streamed live on YouTube or Twitch to qualify. When nobody stepped up to the plate for 3 weeks, Critical raised the bounty up to $20,000 for the first person to accomplish this. The streamer, known as Jervelin, completed the run using an original Halo 2 disc and has made a name for himself accomplishing various Halo-related challenges over the years. And took home that golden star, completed his run in a little under 6.5 hours. You can find his video on Twitch, by the way. This article here does link to it, as you can see right there. Back to that article. You couldn't script a more wholesome finale here, Critical says in a video congratulating Jervelin. According to Critical, about 2,000 people actively tried to complete the challenge, which lasted over 40 days, and only 25 people total even made it past the first level. That's how difficult this is. So congratulations to Jervelin, and enjoy your hard-won cash. Also remember, the government's going to take about 40% of that. Have a nice day. Moving on, the Snitch. The Snitch has been quickly recognized as one of the more reliable leakers on the internet. No one knows who he is. No one has any idea how he gets his information. Although it seems to be that he might be some kind of European YouTube employee who is getting access to the video database and seeing the information as they pop up, because people will put the videos on the YouTube page, will make them hidden, etc., like that. That seems to be what the common, I don't want to say common knowledge, but that seems to be what the general consensus is as to who this person might be. But beyond that, we don't know, and even that's just speculation. But he recently teased yet another game, saying being afraid of the dark is what keeps most of us alive. Now, that is an oddly specific line from a terrible, terrible movie. That comes from Uwe Boll's Alone in the Dark movie starring Christian Slater. He tells this to some kid about how his mom said there are no such things as monsters in the dark or something like that, to which Edward Carnby, the character that Christian Slater plays, replies with that line. Admittedly, I actually do like that line, but the movie is god-awful, so don't go confirm it on your own. There's no need to. It's a terrible-ass movie. But given the fact that it is from Alone in the Dark, and given the fact that Alone in the Dark is, as an IP, is owned by THQ or THQ Nordic, and that THQ Nordic has an event coming this week, more details of which we'll be talking about later in the show, it's probably a good bet that there'll be either a remaster or a remake or a brand new game set in the Alone in the Dark universe. Now, what the hell is Alone in the Dark, you might ask? It's a game that's had a very rough past few games. None of the more recent entries were very successful. I think the last one came out in 2013, maybe a little bit even earlier than that. Maybe 2008. I don't quite remember when it dropped, but it's not good. It's not good at all. And the one before that, New Nightmare, wasn't good. However, the original Alone in the Dark on PC way back when can kind of be considered one of the grandfathers of survival horror, doing what Resident Evil did before Resident Evil came out, where you're a paranormal investigator, you're exploring a mansion, it has those static camera angles, albeit in a very blocky tone, and you're moving in typical tank controls, exploring something haunted, and shit tries to kill you. I would love to see this game go back to its roots and create something scary with that sense of being alone and hunted and dealing with things that are outside your ability to comprehend. Will we get that? I have no clue. But I'm willing to bet that we'll know for sure what kind of game is coming from Alone in the Dark come this Thursday or Friday or whatever that THQ stream is. Also, like I said, the Snitch, they know their stuff, whoever they may be. They've correctly predicted multiple things in the past before that was announced, which leads to people to believe that they were on the YouTube side of things, because it's not just from one company. It's across a myriad of things. But either way, we'll find out more here in a couple of days. While on the topic of video game shows, Jeff Keighley detailed one of the games that's going to be revealed at his opening night live, and it seems that the developers of Subnatica, Unknown Worlds, are going to be showing off their new sci-fi IP at his show coming up at the end of August. Now, Subnautica is a great little survival game. I love exploring the underwater areas. I think it's a cool little story to it. The second one, Below Zero, not so much. However, one question I do have about this is that they say brand new sci-fi IP, but many of Unknown Worlds games are still in the same universe. So, for example, they did a game called Natural Selection, but it's in the Subnautica universe, I believe. Don't quote me on that. Verify on your own. Now, when they say brand new sci-fi IP, do they mean a new story with new characters and new kind of gameplay in that same universe? Or is this going to be something completely independent of the Subnautica Natural Selection universe? My gut says leans toward the latter, but we've seen how companies can be very wishy-washy with terms before. Who knows what this is going to be? So, for example, the Callisto Protocol was called a new IP despite being previously set in the PUBG universe. That has now since been abandoned and is its own standalone thing, but that kind of gives you an example of how a company can be, like I said, wishy-washy with their terms. I'm sure we'll get more news of this as we get closer to that date if it doesn't leak, or on August 23rd when the show drops itself. Next up on the docket, this is via Reuters, and this is one of those things I don't like, but we got to talk about it. Tencent seeks a bigger stake in Assassin's Creed maker Ubisoft. We all know my opinion on Tencent. You are right to fear Tencent. I think they are a blight upon this industry, and I really have ethical questions about taking money from a company that is primarily comprised of members of the Chinese Communist Party. To the article itself. Tencent Holdings plans to raise its stake in French video game group Ubisoft as the Chinese gaming giant pivots toward the global gaming market. 4 sources with direct knowledge of the matter told Reuters. When you have 4 separate sources, this is more or less confirmed at this point. You don't have that many people coming in saying this is happening and not have at least discussions of it going down. China's largest social network and gaming firm, which bought a 5% stake in Ubisoft in 2018, I believe they bought that 5% stake to help the Guillemot family prevent a hostile takeover from Vivendi. I'll have to check my time frame on that, but I believe that's the case. Has reached out to the French firm's founding Guillemot family and expressed interest in increasing its stake in its firm, the sources said. It's not clear how much more Tencent wants to own in Ubisoft, valued at $5.3 billion, but Tencent aims to be the single largest shareholder of the French company with an additional stake purchase, 2 sources said, speaking on conditions of anonymity. Tencent is hoping to buy part of the additional stake in Ubisoft, maker of the blockbuster Assassin's Creed game franchise, from the Guillemot family, which owns roughly 15% of the firm, 3 sources said. Details of the deal are not yet finalized and subject to change, the sources also said. Now, that does not necessarily mean they're going to be buying they're not going to be buying a majority stake, which would be 50% plus 1 vote. But if they want to be the biggest stakeholder, and that is currently Guillemot, they can choose to buy up to 15.1% from various outstanding shares from other people, or they could buy just enough shares from the Guillemot family itself, reducing their stake down to, say, 7%, while Tencent's stake might go up to like 12%. That's how this can work out, or any area in between. Why Ubisoft? Well, because they're the weakest of the big boys right now. All the big publishers are going through some sort of issue. Activision, Blizzard, EA, Ubisoft, even Microsoft and Sony to some degree. But Ubisoft, when it comes down to the big publishers, seems, at least to me, to be the weakest of them out there right now. So they are an easy target to gobble up. It's easy buying, easy in quotes. We're talking billions of dollars still. But it's an easy buy-in. And if you're wanting to get your foot in more and more companies, and you want to get your foot into one of the bigger boys, this is the one to pick off. What would be interesting, however, is if the Saudi royal prince gets involved in buying up Ubisoft as well, and there's a bidding war between the CCP and Saudi Arabia. I hate both of these sides, but I would love to see some weird factional infighting between I was almost saying my enemies, but they're not really my enemies. Trust me, I don't want either one of them as an enemy. But I would love to see some fighting between these two people. That would be hilarious. So yeah, it seems like Tencent once again is going to continue growing. Hello there, Mike No Play. You're going to go see if you have few millions to buy Ubisoft. Millions won't do it. It's billions that you need, unfortunately. We'll see how this deal shakes out, as I would say it's likely to happen as Tencent just gets larger and larger and larger. I hate it. Another thing that I hate, speaking of, let's move to gamesindustry.biz. The headline here, study finds that Belgium's loot box ban isn't being enforced. That ain't good. A new study reveals that Belgium's ban on loot boxes within gaming has not been enforced. In 2018, the Belgian Gaming Commission recommended criminal prosecution over illegal loot boxes, but loot box researcher Leon Y. Xiao found that many companies outright ignored the ban, and measures to comply with the law were easily circumvented. The study noted that among the 100 highest grossing Belgian iPhone games during May 2021, 82% of them had loot box features. Give me 1 second. My apologies. The report on say that the policy had given consumers and parents and policymakers, quote, a false sense of security. Xiao studies conclude saying that the law isn't working as it should be and should be reconsidered. Since Belgium has banned loot boxes, some game companies such as Nintendo has halted the service of titles. Go Nintendo, actually, following what the law there is. Others have responded by no longer selling or removing loot boxes within their titles, such as EA, Valve, and Rocket League developer Psyonix. In May, Activision Blizzard confirmed that its latest RPG, Diablo Immortal, would not be released in the country. Not to kick Diablo Immortal once again, but that just shows you how ingrained loot boxes are in that game, that they would just rather not sell it in Belgium than provide it without them. It's fucked up. This isn't surprising. I did not actually think about enforcement when I first heard Belgium doing this, but if the law has no teeth, then who cares? If it's even if it does have a little bit of teeth, let's say it's $5,000 a day. Okay, cool. Find me $5,000 a day. If my game makes me $10,000 a day, fuck off. Why do I care? However, I do see this growing, this movement to ban loot boxes and surprise mechanics and the slot machine style gambling, to call it what it is, found in these games. You're starting to see more and more countries starting to look at these things. The government does move slowly when it moves at all. And I do think it is inevitable that more and more governments are going to start going, okay, enough of this shit. And it's going to start off with limp-wristed penalties, which will eventually get more and more severe, up until the point the government can rightfully take its cut, where what it sees as rightfully take its cut. Then all of a sudden you're going to have like exemptions carved out and special laws put in place that you can't have this, but this one company is exempt from it because that one company lobbied someone politician that got hired up somewhere else. But we're now going on the conspiracy train at this point. I'm not surprised that some companies are ignoring it. What is shocking to me is that it's so many of them. And I do think that you will start seeing bigger and bigger countries, because I think it was the Netherlands was the other one. Belgium, no offense to these countries, but they are small in comparison to the rest of the world. I think once you see places like France or Germany, the United Kingdom stepping in, then you'll start getting the attention of some of these companies. Then you'll start seeing governments have some teeth to actually bear down on this stuff. I don't like any of it. I don't like the government involvement, and I don't like the loot boxes either, but this is where we're at. Anyways, that is something to be aware of, however, is that despite these laws being passed in the EU, they're just being largely ignored, it seems. And that is what it is. One more story before to wrap up the news here. Where are we at? This is via Video Game Chronicle. This is tangential to video games, but not necessarily 100% involving them. And I should say my normal news fare would be. Mobile tech firm AppLovin has offered to buy Unity for $17.5 billion. The software company AppLovin has proposed an offer to purchase Unity for $17.54 billion in an all-stock deal. The software company, I've already read that. Unity is currently evaluating an offer which would see the engine creator own 49% of voting power in the new combined company. Currently, Unity is in the midst of plans to merge with another mobile tech company, ironSource. However, the ironSource would not progress if Unity's board opts for the new AppLovin proposal. The proposed deal would see John Riccitiello, CEO of Unity, become the CEO of the joint venture. John Riccitiello, by the way, infamous for being the CEO of EA during what we consider the bad times, which is saying something for EA, also recently came out and called a bunch of developers fucking idiots for not considering monetization up and down their games. Kind of ate some shit for that. He went out and apologized in the typical corporate speak you expect from any CEO who really has no idea what's going on with the gaming scene and is 100% concerned only with the business side of things. Admittedly understandable as a job of a CEO, but I digress. Unity is the world's most popular game engines, leading to mobile games such as Pokemon Go and Call of Duty Mobile. Not only those two, but also a myriad of indie games. The Unity store, for example, take a look at that and you'll see all kinds of assets people can buy and flip shitty, well, they're called asset flips, on Steam. Some good indie games come from this. Some AAA stuff uses Unity, although there has been a move to make your engines in-house. Going back to EA, there's a reason why everyone uses Snowblind through EA now rather than dealing with Unity, except Respawn, which kind of gets away with doing whatever they want. I think they're working with Unreal, or they could be working with Unity now. I don't remember which one they're working with. Unity is big, and that's the reason why I mention this here. Unity is there's Unity, and then there's like Epic. Not Epic, Unreal, I think. It's his name. I'm starting to get my names confused. But it's a huge, huge engine that a lot of indie devs use. And I don't just mean the shitty asset flippers. I mean actual good indie devs. So whenever anything affects Unity as a company, it affects the indie scene immensely. And it's always concerning when you have a big change. Not only a big change, but a big change when a mobile app developer takes over, considering the race to the bottom that I personally find most app stores to be in the first place. So I get really, really worried when I hear this story specifically, because who knows what's going to come out of it. Chat saying Respawn uses a modified version of Source. Fascinating. I'd be... Didn't know. I don't know if this is actually going to affect anything or not, but this is one of those stories that I'm really worried about. Hopefully my fears are unfounded. That kind of wraps up for the big news stories. I got a couple delays, a couple of upcoming events, and of course new releases that we're going to go ahead and get into. So let's go ahead and do that right here. First up, Marvel Midnight Suns delayed again. We have an important update to share regarding our launch date for Marvel's Midnight Suns. After discussing with the team, we made a decision to move the launch timing of Marvel Midnight Suns to... I hate it when a company has to say the entire name over again. To ensure we're delivering the best possible experience for our fans. We will launch later this fiscal year, which means all the way up to March of 2023. On PC, Xbox Series X, PlayStation 5, with the Xbox One, PlayStation 4, and Nintendo Switch versions following at a later date. They're getting canceled. Last gen copies of this game are getting the axe. I can bet your bottom dollar on it right now. Last gen copies of Midnight Suns are going to get canceled. I'd be willing to bet the main reason why this is getting delayed again, considering there's now a separation between those dates, is because last gen is screwing with their ability to pull this game off. So I think rather than giving you a double dose of bad news out the gate, they're going to be shifting focus to performance on next gen stuff. And then in a couple of months, you'll just have the last gen stuff quietly dropped off. That is my theory as to what's going on here. We know fans are looking forward to playing Marvel Midnight Suns, and we'll use this extra time to make sure we're delivering the best possible experience for everyone. Midnight Suns is easily the biggest game we've ever made, and we're incredibly appreciative of all the support players have shared with us throughout the years. Thank you from the Marvel Midnight Suns team. Note they did not give a date. Good. Thank you. Just say it's delayed and don't give another date, because this game's already been delayed once and they dated it again, I believe. At least, the very least, they said October. Or maybe it was November. I don't remember when. But they kind of gave a release window. Now it's a more ambiguous, hey, sometime in the next this fiscal year. I'd be happier if they just didn't say a date, they even give that much. Just say, hey, it's coming out a later date. We need time to work on it. This leads into something that I've been going on about, however, and that is this. Everything is getting delayed. It has been delayed over the past few years. Once again, you can't talk about this stuff without the events that have happened over the past few years of everything shutting down and essentially coming to a dead stop. But god damn it, after a while, you kind of have to start going, there's something wrong. And it's more than just lockdowns and people working from home. Something is going wrong. I don't know what that thing is, but it has to be more than that at this point. Let's see. Chat says, wasn't this game at last E3? I don't remember when we last saw this game. I think it was... I remember the trailer showed the Hulk all demoned out, and I think that was 3 or 4 months ago. So they have been talking about this game. It's been a couple months since they last did so, though. Also delayed, Arc Raiders. Update from Arc Raiders from the team. We've made the decision to delay Arc Raiders to 2023. Arc Raiders is an ambitious game and will be using this extra time to expand the experience and allow it to reach its fullest potential. We'll be diving more into the details soon as we start to test the game more extensively with players. The excitement around Arc Raider since its reveal has been so encouraging for us and truly appreciate your support. I forgot this game even existed. I don't even know much about it. I remember it had its debut trailer, and I remember watching it thinking that its logo here did not match the tone of the game at all, and that's the only takeaway I took from it. It's not surprising to hear that it's been delayed, because this is one of those things that like I said, there's been no news or buzz about this at all. I'm sure there are a few of you out there who are really looking forward to this, and I never wish failure in any game, but this really does seem to be doomed to fail. And I know that's harsh. The game's not even really shown anything yet. It's coming out next year. But you can kind of get the pulse of certain things. And when there's absolutely zero buzz about this, that even the delay of it kind of goes unnoticed, it's not a good sign. We've got a couple of upcoming events this week and later in the month that you need to be aware of. First up, Nintendo announced that there's going to be a Splatoon Direct this tomorrow, Wednesday, the August the 10th at 3 p.m. CST. I can read. It's going to be about Splatoon 3, and it's going to be roughly 30 minutes. So a Splatoon-focused Direct. If you're into Splatoon, and many of you are, take a look at that. You also have the aforementioned THQ Nordic Annual Digital Showcase streaming on August 12th. That's going to be Friday, so I will not be live streaming in here. But this is probably where we'll see that Alone in the Dark game get announced, as well as many other things. I kind of like THQ Nordic. They have a lot of IP, a lot of franchises that I love that have been dormant for a while, and I'm hoping to see some of that stuff come back. Hell, we might even see something about Time Splitters. Maybe. I don't know. But we can always hope. And then finally, we do have a few more open details about Jeff Keighley's opening nights live at Gamescom. This isn't this week. This is later in the month on August 23rd. However, he did drop some deets on it. It is going to be 2 hours with 30-plus games on stage. That will be a mix of previously announced games and new announcements, by the way. 2 hours, though, Jeff. Man, I don't know if this needs to be 2 hours. I love you, Jeff Keighley. I think you're a net positive for the industry, but man, has it really been... I mean, this year's Summer of Games felt lacking. The last Game Awards felt lacking when it comes to announcements. Temper your expectations, is what I will say on this. Don't go into this hoping to have everything under the sun announced. Don't go into this thinking that we're going to get Half-Life 3, Mass Effect 4, and System Shock 3, and all that other good stuff. Just kind of dial it back. Expect it to be 2 hours, half of which you're not even going to have an interest in, if not more. It could be ads or games you're not too focused on. Watermelon, good to have you. Isn't Saints Row coming out soon? Yes, Saints Row comes out, I think, on the 23rd or the day before this, one or the other. But yeah, Saints Row is coming out this month. I will be streaming Saints Row, by the way. I am not too excited for it, but I have to look at it because I love that franchise so much that I have to see what they did to my boy. And I hope they didn't massacre it, but we will find out later this month for certain. That does it for upcoming events. We do have some new releases that I want to get into. First up, Farthest Frontier on PC. It's entering early access today. This is from Crate. These are the people that made Grim Dawn. And it is a city builder kind of like Banished. The official description is as follows. Protect and guide your people as you forge a town from untamed wilderness at the edge of the known world. Harvest raw materials, hunt, fish, and farm to survive. Produce crafted items to trade, consume, equip, and fight as you battle for survival against the elements and outside threats. Super interested in this. I don't know if I'm going to get it out the gate because it is an early access title, and I tend to wait for full releases before I play those. However, love Grim Dawn. It's been a while since I played a city builder. It's kind of craving one a little bit here. I might have to take a look at this, even if it is recent to early access. Also out this week, 2 Point Campus for the PC, PlayStation 4 and 5, Xbox One, and the Xbox Series S and X, and Switch. Build a university of your dreams with 2 Point Campus, the sim with a twist from the makers of 2 Point Hospital. Build, hire, and run an academic institution packed with wild courses. If you like the 2 Point stuff, this is the hospital version of it. I know that 2 Point Campus has its fair share of players. Build your own hospital. Staff it with JD and Turk and Dr. Cox and all that stuff from Scrubs, I guess. I don't know. Finally, the game that I'm looking forward to most this week, Cult of the Lamb, on PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, PC, Xbox One, Xbox Series X. Start your own cult in a land of false prophets, venturing out into diverse and mysterious religions to build a loyal community of woodland followers and spread your word to become the one true cult. Super excited for this. It's like Happy Time Friends from South Park meets Binding of Isaac. Really, really looking forward to this. Looks great. Published by Devolver, I believe. They tend to have a good eye for indie shit. I will be streaming this as well, if not at the end of this week, then early next. And that does it for new releases, which means that does it for the show as well. Thank you all for showing up. This has been GamePoints episode 322. We do this show live every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time right here at Twitch TV/GamePoints. And I hope to see you all next week, like so many of you do in chat, as well in the comments below if you can't watch us live. There's Discord you can join, link provided down there. And if you want to read all these stories yourself, links are provided in the description down there. You can follow myself, Stephen Brown, at CapitalistPig21 on Twitter. And I also stream normal games throughout the week, Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday, 2 shows a day. Schedule on the appropriate pages. Going through Hard West 2 right now. Really liking it. It's a good little strategy game with that Weird West flair. Big into it. Anyways, thank you all for showing up. That wraps things up here. Until next week, I'll be seeing you.